All right, dude. So in this quick video, dude, I wanted to ask you, your reaction. Barcelona go 4 points clear of, Real Madrid after this weekend. Obviously, Barcelona won their match. Real Madrid, lost against Celta de Vigo. We do have a Champions League game in which, in my opinion, I think you agree as well, against Frankfurt. That's going to be important. But we'll get into that, scoreboard predictions. We'll do the lineups. And then, but I did want to focus on the Real Madrid, Real Madrid losing this weekend and Barcelona going 4 points clear. What do you think? What, did you expect that?
To be honest, dude, I didn't expect Real Madrid to lose at home against Celta de Vigo. Um, but I do want to say that ever since the Clásico, Real Madrid have been horrible.
Yeah.
And and because Real Madrid have been horrible, and if you really pay attention to the way they play, I mean, it's not surprising, bro, that they lost their lead in the table and that Barca are first. So, um, after the Clásico, if you would have asked me, do you think there's a good chance that Real Madrid can take it? They can go on and keep this lead against Barca towards maybe closer to next year, maybe to the next Clásico. I would probably say yeah, I can see Real Madrid keeping that lead, but I mean ever since that game, bro, Real Madrid have just been horrible. The only game that they convincingly won was against Bilbao. That
Hmm.
was it. I mean, after that, you look at a team, bro, that has no soul. They have no playing style. They're bland. So, like I said, I didn't expect it. I didn't see it coming. Like I said, if you would have asked me after the Clásico if Real Madrid, do you think Real Madrid would have lost the lead? It would have been 4 points behind Barca towards the end of the year. I would have told you, no, I don't think so. But that's exactly what happened. I do also want to say something about that because maybe losing the Clásico was actually a better thing for Barca, bro. Because you know that historically, after Barca win the first Clásico, they tend to kind of go down, you know, and then they tend to lose focus, maybe lose a couple of games. It happened a lot on the Xavi. So maybe them losing the Clásico was probably like, okay, a reality check. Like you guys need to go ahead and get your crap together and focus. And Barca, ever since the Clásico, bro, they've been going up. And Real Madrid. Man, that's funny. That's funny. So that's all I have to say about that. Barca are first. They're first in the league now. They're 4 points ahead of Real Madrid. Um, and I think Barca, they're getting all the players back from injury. So I could definitely see Barca, bro, keeping this momentum. I think that last season it was around this time too where we saw Barca have a dip. I remember it was towards the end of 2024 last year.
Yep, you're right.
And they had a dip, and then after that, come the new year in January, bro, Barca went on a nice run without losing any games. I remember. So, we could probably see something like that happening again. Barca, they're getting all their players back from injury. They're playing good. They know what they're playing for. So yeah, bro, I think I'm looking forward to see what Barca can do next year.
To be honest, bro, I think that it caught me off guard the fact that Real Madrid lost. And, they, like you said, before the Clásico, leading up to the Clásico, I think that both Real Madrid and Barcelona kind of came, were both coming off not looking so good.
Yeah.
But I do believe that Real Madrid was looking a little bit slightly better than Barcelona coming into the Clásico. I didn't expect for Real Madrid to lose, like I said. I didn't even expect for them to draw. Obviously that happened last weekend when they drew, they lost points. So I felt like this time around they were gonna go ahead and try to win. But I think for me, bro, what I would like to say is that I think a lot of the players, bro, they're not. I don't think they really want to fight for Xavi Alonso, dude. I think that a lot of the players they have a huge ego, bro. And I think for me, people might call me crazy, bro, but of course, we can both agree that Mbappe coming to Real Madrid pretty much ruined the locker room, right? Because you have Mbappe coming in. Real Madrid had just won the Champions League. You have Vini, who was pretty much good in the Champions League, and then here he comes and boom. Obviously Vini, Rodrigo, and all these other players like Bellingham are gonna be like, hey, we didn't really need you, but guess what, dude? That's how clubs are run. They run like that. meaning that the clubs are always going to go ahead and try to get the best players they can, or even a player that they believe, can fit well into their system, right? Now, with that being said, I think that Vini for me is the problem because I think that he has a huge ego, dude, and I think Real Madrid will actually benefit from letting him go on the summer. And that's just my opinion. Call me crazy. People might actually think that the one who needs to leave is Mbappe, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that I think that I'll focus a team around Mbappe. I will put the team around Mbappe and maybe get myself a, if I was Real Madrid, get a number nine. I think that's what Real Madrid need, because as long as Vini and Mbappe are playing there together, bro, I don't see that happening. Now the question for Real Madrid becomes is, do you focus and do your team around Vini, or do you do it against Mbappe? And for me, if I can go ahead and sell Vini for 200 million, dude, I might just do that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I think now that Mbappe's there, yeah, I do think it makes sense to for them to work the team against Mbappe. But I would say that before Mbappe got there, Real Madrid didn't need Mbappe, bro. They
Mm-mm.
didn't need Mbappe. I think Real Madrid what they needed was a Benzema type of player, number nine. The closest one that you can get to him at that time would have probably been Harry Kane or maybe Haaland. But
Mhm.
Mbappe was not needed at Real Madrid, bro. But now you have him there, so like I said, dude. To me, I don't care. I'm, bro, I'm happy. Xavi, quédate. Quédate, Xavi. Honestly, bro, because you know what, to be honest, dude, I remember Real G fans, bro, when they were talking a lot of smack from Xavi, the coach that we had. And, they kept saying, oh, you guys have the best coach ever. Well, you guys have, just like I didn't think Xavi was a bad coach for us, I also don't think Xavi Alonso is a bad coach either. Don't get me wrong. But to be honest, dude, when it comes to Real Madrid, it's not really about the tactical part of it. It's not really so much about the board, the discipline. It's about managing those divas, bro. They got a bunch of divas in there. That's
Yeah.
what it's all about, dude. So, I don't care, bro. To be honest, I hope they stay like this until next season. To be honest,
Well,
I don't care. But I would end it like this. And on my end, I would say that now that Mbappe is there, the most logical thing to do is to sell Vini Jr. because you can build a whole team with the money that you can get from that player. Um, but had you asked me this question before Mbappe got there, I would have said Mbappe was never needed at Real Madrid.
no, dude, I agree with you 100%. I don't think Mbappe was needed at Real Madrid. And I think that, like you said, Real Madrid could have actually benefited from getting a number nine, which was who they needed, because I don't know if people know this, bro, but I used to watch obviously, I'm saying like in terms of Mbappe, right? I don't know if people know this, but Mbappe at PSG, he didn't really want to play as a number nine. It's just what happened to be that when Messi and Neymar were there, the coach was like, "Hey, I need you to play as a number nine." But Mbappe always wanted to play in the wing, so he would kind of, there was kind of some issues there where Mbappe would say, "Hey, you know what? I want to play in the wing." But obviously, you got Neymar there, and then that's the reason why I was really surprised when Mbappe joined Real Madrid, and then pretty much took upon, you know, he was okay with playing as a number nine, because I said, you know what? Hey, if you didn't really want to play as a number nine and PSG, you're pretty much gonna have to play as a number nine. You know, I think that Real Madrid right now, bro, is going to be kind of hard. They're in a pickle, which, like you said, I'm glad. I like Xabi Alonso though. There's certain players that you forget who they played for, but and you appreciate the craft. You get me? And Xabi Alonso for me is one of those players. I don't care if he played for Real Madrid. I remember him playing for Liverpool, bro, and I used to love Xabi Alonso. I remember seeing him in a Liga in an international team alongside Busquets, Xavi, and Iniesta, and I said, man, this guy is good. So with that being said, I don't think Xabi Alonso is a bad coach, like you said. It's just that unfortunately he does have to deal with a lot of egos. But that is the problem that comes with dealing with a big club. You go into big club, especially Champions League winners, Liga winners, and a lot of these players are gonna say, "Hey, you know what? I'm not really gonna do what you want me to do because you know what? This other way worked for me, right?" So I think that Wednesday is gonna be kind of telling for Real Madrid, bro, because Wednesday they play against City. They play against City in the Champions League, and the reports are saying that if Xabi Alonso loses that match, Real Madrid lose that match, Florentino Perez is gonna sack him.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, dude. To be honest, if that happens, and I also would not be surprised if City smack Real Madrid around. But I do think City, they're also defensively not that good. They're not that solid, and they open up. So could Real Madrid beat City? They could. You know, they
Yeah.
did it last. They did it last season, so they could beat City. But in terms of like on the field, yeah, I don't see this Real Madrid competing against City for the ball, or in terms of like gameplay, you know. But yeah,
Yeah.
you know, I think Mbappe or Vini can go ahead and use their pace and their speed to score maybe a goal or two. So it's gonna be an interesting game. I'm gonna watch it for sure. That one I'm gonna watch it. Um, but like I said, if Real Madrid lose, that's good for me. But at the end of the day, I would like to see how it turns out. You know, in one season under Alonso. So I would like to see him go. To be honest, dude, but you're right. The reports are there that if he does lose against City, he can get the boot.
Well, let's see what happens, dude. I mean, I wish nothing but the worst for Real Madrid, of course. Because obviously, that if Real Madrid are bad, that means that we're good. I mean, in a sense, for La Liga. But with that being said, moving away from that, bro, we do have the Champions League game coming against Frankfurt. Just real quick, Barcelona have been struggling in the Champions League. In La Liga as well, they struggled. I think that the Rafinha coming back from injury, I think Pedri kind of coming back as well. I think it's going to benefit Barcelona in this Champions League game, and they obviously need to go ahead and win because in the Champions League, like I said, they haven't been doing so good. They've been dropping points, and they're playing at home, right? Barcelona's playing at home, so I think that the momentum that they're starting to build off La Liga, I think that they need to use that and kind of play like that in the Champions League. But real quick, what do you think? You think Barcelona wins? What's your scoreboard prediction? Give me your lineups. Would you like to see Ferran, the shark there, after seeing the hat trick score being scored by him during the weekend? And then just real quick before you answer that, I also wanted to ask you about Gerard Martin. Just your thoughts about Gerard Martin playing as a center back. I know you, and I'm gonna keep saying this. I know you have been calling for Gerard Martin to be playing as a center back ever since the preseason because that's when we saw Gerard Martin being used there for Fleek. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I think after Barca lost 3-0 to Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, Barca, I guess you could say that they haven't been doing too well in the Champions League, and they have struggled in the Champions League. To be fair, because it wasn't just against Chelsea. They also lost against PSG at home. They could have lost against Club Brugge, I remember, away. And they did struggle against Olympiacos in the first 45 minutes at home,
Hmm.
I remember. So yeah, this season in the Champions League, they kind of struggled a little bit. But I've liked what I've seen from Barca so far. To be honest,
Yeah.
like I said, Barca have been going in an upwards trajectory since the Clasico loss. So if they can build on this momentum, like you said, and then if they can play the way they played against Celta de Vigo, I want to say for the majority of the game, and the way they played for 80 minutes against Real Betis on the weekend, I think Barca can win by a pretty good amount of goals, in my opinion. The only thing I would say is that I hopefully we don't see the last 10 minutes that we saw against Real Betis on the weekend, in the Champions League. Because the thing about it, bro, is that if you do that in the Champions League, um, you can lose it. You can lose a match. You can lose a game like that. And you're playing at home, and yeah, you're playing maybe not the best team in Germany, but you're still playing a dangerous team from Germany. So, um, I hope Barca can win. My score prediction for this game, I'll say it is, I think Barca can win by maybe 4-1 or 4-2. Um, but in terms of lineups, I really do hope we don't see Ferran Torres in a starting lineup. And you know what, people may say, bro, like, what are you talking about? You're crazy. He just scored a hat trick on the weekend. I don't care. I don't care. And the reason why I don't care is because that's the player that he is, and that's the player that we know him for. He can score you goals against the Liga teams left and right, okay? But then when it comes to crucial moments, big match, big games, for him to be a big match player, he's not. He disappears. He's not that player. I think we need to make it clear that Ferran Torres, for us, he's a super sub. A super sub, the one we call it, where a player comes in, he can score you a goal, he can probably win you a match with his goal. but he's not a starter. I hope I don't see him there. But since he scored a hat trick, um, I guess you can say that we can expect him to start. But I would like to see Lewa there. You know, with Rafinha, Lamine Yamal. Um, and hopefully we do because Lewa rested this past weekend. He
Mhm.
didn't even bring him in at all. So I have a feeling that he's gonna start him. Because he rested him the whole game on the weekend. But going to the defense, right? You talked about Gerard Martin. Yeah, dude, I'm actually really really happy to see Gerard Martin as a center back because I do remember that I saw him there in the preseason when Flick used him, and I remember thinking to myself, I was like, you know what? He doesn't look bad there. He didn't look too bad there, and I also was thinking at that time, man, it says a lot about Araujo. Flick is basically telling Araujo that he's really not counting on him. And with the whole thing that happened with Araujo, bro, sometimes things happen for a reason, right? Because right now that the whole thing that's happening with Araujo, Gerard Martin is able to step up, and well, look what we've seen from Gerard Martin. Honestly, bro, Gerard Martin looks pretty good there, and I would love him to continue, playing as a center back. Like I said, he was one of the players that I wanted Fleet to try out. When he was trying a lot of players there and they were not working. I wanted him to try him out, and I've also been saying that I would have loved for him to try out Bernal there. He hasn't tried out Bernal there, but at least we have Gerard Martin there, which in my opinion, bro, he should be starting there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually agree with everything you just mentioned, bro, about regarding from Ferran Torres, even to Gerard Martin. I think Ferran Torres is the type of player that he can probably do good against mid-table teams in La Liga. Frankfurt, I know that they're not the best team in Germany, like you mentioned, but they're still a good team, bro. If the team is in the Champions League, they're a good team in my opinion. I don't think. I actually think Ferran Torres starts. I don't think he's going to start with Lewandowski. I think he's going to start off with Ferran, and he's going to continue the momentum that Ferran had, given obviously the hat trick that he scored during the weekend. With that being said, regarding Frankfurt and the match predictions, the score predictions, I don't really see a big scoreboard, bro. And the reason why I tell you this is because Frankfurt kind of play defensive football, and I think that they're gonna go. If I'm not, I was reading that their plan is to pretty much go with a five-man defense, and I think it's gonna be kind of hard for Barcelona to break that. I think that we're gonna need to see Barcelona being able to kind of keep the ball, move the ball around a lot, and kind of break those tight lines and those small pockets they're gonna have to pick. So I'm gonna be more conservative, bro. I think that I will go with like maybe a two-goal lead for Barcelona. Um, I don't see a draw, and I don't see Barcelona losing. So I think Barcelona can win. But I will also like how I mentioned right for Barcelona to keep this momentum from La Liga, and transmit that over to the Champions League. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I guess we'll see tomorrow, dude.
Yeah, yeah, dude. We'll see tomorrow. Like I said, I'm hoping Barca can win because they gotta get back to the Champions League, bro. I mean, to be
Yeah,
honest, dude. I mean, they've dropped a lot of points in the Champions League, so they need to go back and need to get back at it. So I'm hoping for a big win because I believe this is the last game for the Champions League this year. So I'm hoping to see a big win, bro. Especially because they're at home.
yeah.
And if they're able to get a big win, bro, that's just a huge motivation coming next year.